There was a warning spoken decades ago, a warning so clear, so direct, that it still echoes today. It was not whispered. It was not hidden. It was spoken boldly, with courage and urgency. The warning was simple: poverty is not an accident. Poverty is not a personal failure. Poverty is violence. And the tragedy is not that the warning was unclear. The tragedy is that it was ignored. Poverty does not always arrive with guns or bombs. Sometimes it arrives quietly, wearing the mask of normal life. It shows up in empty refrigerators, in overcrowded classrooms, in hospitals that people are afraid to enter because they cannot afford the bill. It shows up when a parent works 2 jobs and still cannot pay rent. It shows up when a child goes to sleep hungry in the richest nation on earth. This is not just hardship. This is harm. And harm done again and again becomes violence. When a system allows millions to struggle while a few accumulate unimaginable wealth, that system is making a choice. When society shrugs and says, "That's just how things are," it is choosing comfort over conscience. Poverty does not just limit income, it limits hope. It steals time, energy, and dignity. It traps people in survival mode, where dreaming feels like a luxury and rest feels like a crime. Violence is often imagined as something sudden and explosive. But poverty is slow violence. It works day after day, year after year. It shortens lives. It damages mental health. It turns preventable illnesses into death sentences. It silences voices by exhausting them. A person who is constantly worried about food, rent, and safety does not have the freedom to fully participate in democracy, creativity, or progress. We were warned that ignoring poverty would come at a cost. And today, that cost is everywhere. We see it in rising anger, deep divisions, and broken trust. We see it in streets filled with frustration and institutions filled with fear. A society that neglects its most vulnerable does not become stronger, it becomes brittle. It may look powerful on the outside, but inside it is cracking. The warning was never about charity alone. It was about justice. Charity treats the symptoms. Justice addresses the cause. Justice asks hard questions. Why do full-time workers remain poor? Why does access to education depend on zip codes? Why does healthcare feel like a privilege instead of a right? These are not mysteries. They are outcomes of choices made again and again. Poverty is violence because it denies people the chance to become who they are meant to be. It tells them their lives are worth less. It convinces them that struggling is normal and dreaming is foolish. Over time, that message sinks deep. And when enough people receive that message, a nation loses something precious: its moral direction. Ignoring poverty also damages those who think they are untouched by it. A society divided between abundance and desperation cannot remain stable. Fear grows. Distrust spreads. Empathy weakens. Walls go up, real ones and invisible ones. And eventually, the cost of neglect becomes higher than the cost of change ever was. The warning was not meant to inspire guilt. It was meant to inspire action. It was a call to recognize shared humanity, to understand that an injury to one is an injury to all. That progress measured only by profit is incomplete. That true greatness is measured by how the least protected are treated. We were warned that silence would be a form of betrayal. Silence in the face of suffering. Silence when policies harm the poor. Silence when wages stagnate while prices soar. Silence when children inherit debt instead of opportunity. Silence allows violence to continue without resistance. Yet even now, it is not too late. The warning still carries hope. Because if poverty is created by human choices, It can be undone by human courage. Systems can change. Priorities can shift. Policies can be rewritten. But first, there must be honesty. An honest admission that poverty is not inevitable and indifference is not neutral. Real change begins when people stop asking, why don't they work harder? And start asking, why does hard work not pay? It begins when success is no longer defined by how much one accumulates, but by how many are lifted. It begins when leaders are held accountable not just for economic growth, but for human well-being. The warning reminds us that justice delayed is justice denied. Every year of inaction is another year of lost potential. Another generation told, directly or indirectly, that they do not matter enough. That is the quiet cruelty of poverty, and that is why it must be named for what it is. A society can choose a different path, a path where dignity is not earned but recognized, where opportunity is not rationed but shared, where the measure of progress includes compassion, fairness, and courage. This path is harder, but it is honest. And it leads not just to prosperity, but to peace. History will not ask how comfortable we were. It will ask what we did when we knew better. We were warned. The message was clear. The question now is whether we will continue to ignore it or finally listen and act.